Alex Miller, welcome to Bookshots.
Thanks, Caroline. It's lovely to be here with you.
What's the genesis of Coal Creek?
So there's aspects of myself, definitely, in my past experience, and there's aspects of other people, and a long-standing awareness of the way in which, say, the hinterland of North Queensland, the ranges, is virtually unknown. You don't meet anybody. I mean there are no tourist facilities there anyway, and there's a sense in which the hinterland and the coast don't understand each other, and so that misunderstanding results in a tragedy.
I think one of the things that gives this book its power is the way you've created Bobby's voice as the narrator. So he's a young man who's not been educated. Language is not a tool that he's familiar with. And I was just wondering whether you could say something about your use of language, and particularly the rhythms and the cadences of the way Bobby Blue tells us about his relationship with Daniel, the policeman, and his family, the policeman's family, and his relationship to the country. There's a lot of repetition built into the way he speaks. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's a kind of poetry, I suppose, in prose, in a way, some of it, in the sense that you're picking up that. And yeah, as you say, he's uneducated, he hasn't done any reading, his language is not grammatically correct, and if you're going to write about somebody like that, the incorrectness has to be correct. You can't just have any old incorrectness he's got to be of a locality, of a style, of a period, and that voice is one that I was very familiar with when I was younger. And whenever I hear it now, I always feel a sense of warmth toward the man who's speaking in that way, because there is a kind of unbroken faith and innocence in that voice and in the kind of men who I've known who have that delivery.
Let's talk a little bit more about Daniel, the policeman, and his wife. You make a real point of saying these are coastal people and they don't understand the ways of the hinterland. What is the essential difference between these coastal people and the people who've lived inland?
I doubt if there is any essential difference. I think they're all just people. And Daniel and his wife, he was in the war, and when he came out of the war, the Second World War, he joined the police force. And for an adventure for himself, his family and his two daughters, they wanted to get out of the city and get off into the country somewhere far away from everything. And I suppose in his mind it was to escape from all the sorts of pressures that he'd been under as a returned soldier, and all the memories that he had, which we don't go into in the book, and the possible trauma that he'd been through. Who knows? His wife is hugely respects him enormously for that and never brings it up. It's something he doesn't want to deal with. And I think that's why they went out there. But what the difference is that if you go to a country place that's small, isolated, unvisited, you've got certain norms of behaviour that have been in place probably for 2 or 3 generations, and things are taken for granted. Things will be dealt with in this way. They won't be dealt with it in that way. His way of dealing, say, with the police work is to find what a terrible mess the records are in, left there by George Wilson. George never did records. I mean, the records are a complete mess. And so he sets out to become efficient and to gain control in the only way he knows, which is to get the records right. There's not a lot of crime there, not a lot happening. There aren't that many people. And the bit of crime that is happening is stuff like cattle duffing and stuff like that, which always goes on all the time. It's just picking up clean-skinned cows and putting your own brand on them, or trying to sell them through a sale yard somewhere. And people deal with that and handle it. And the way the previous guy, who was a local, had dealt with it was kind of harmonious with them, with their landscape. And he brings his coastal, and his wife brings her. She's going to help the women of the town, I don't know, get together again. I mean, really, you know, the place is sort of low in energy, nothing is being done, they're not playing tennis anymore, There were once, obviously, the tennis courts there. There's a picture theatre, but it's been burnt down. That she's determined to be a woman who will support her husband and help to get the town on its feet. The town is on its feet. They just don't notice that. For the people who live there, the town is on its feet. It is happening the way it's always happened in that place. He comes into the new broom, the sweep clean. He's well-meaning. His wife takes on the great concern, the great thing to protect the Aboriginal women and the other women of the town from the brutality of their husbands. What brutality? We don't actually find any of this. We don't actually see any. There are assumptions about it. There's wake in fright type of assumption that if you go out there in the dark, in those lonely places, awful things are going to happen. Well, they're not actually.
So Bobby is caught in a very difficult position morally. He's in completely uncharted territory. As you say, he's unsuited for police work. He's working with Daniel, who is unsuited to the country and doesn't understand it, doesn't know how to ride through it without getting lost.
And yet he loves it in a strange way, doesn't he?
And yet he loves it. And Ben is the threat. As far as Daniel is concerned, he's the threat to the kind of public status quo of general safety of the Aboriginal women in the community and possibly the other women in the community. And so suddenly Bobby is having to hunt down his own friend.
Ben's dad was the brutal man because his discipline was to discipline by brutality. He disciplined Ben by beating him. If Ben swore, for example, took the Lord's name in vain, he gave him a good hiding for it. So Ben was brought up with vengeance in him, in a sense, driven in by being beaten. Ben is actually a guy that Bobby loves, and he says, I'm probably the only man who loves Ben Tobin.